All right, let's go. So I moved to Dallas, Texas with my wife, Kristen, in 2002. We were newlyweds. And here's the deal. We were in Atlanta for a long time, loved it. Told the Lord that we're going to move to Dallas. Here's our plan. We're going to move to Dallas. I'm going to go to seminary 4 years, and then God, here's what we're going to do. We're going to go back to Atlanta when we're done. And that usually doesn't work well when you inform God what his plans will be. I don't recommend that. And so I ended up staying in Dallas, Texas, took a job at a church called Watermark Community Church. Worked there for a long time. I got hired to work with newlyweds, pre-married couples, married community, and really it was gonna be a job where I worked with married and single, but they decided to hire 2 people instead of 1. And so they shoved the 2 of us in a really small working space. They called it an office. It was really a closet, would be the best way to describe this room. No windows, interior small. Well, the other guy they put in the room with me who got hired at the same time, maybe you've heard of him before, his name is Jonathan Pokluda, otherwise known as JP. And so JP worked with singles, I worked with marrieds. We lived in the Cloffice together and worked there for a year. And it was great. We talked about Bible, theology, relationships, helped each other grow, always asked questions back and forth to each other. Well, fast forward a few years, this guy, JP, we moved to different roles, fortunately moved out of the office, and now he's my boss. And I'm so thankful. He is an amazing, amazing friend and boss and pastor. And we'd sit down on a regular basis just to go through like different areas of ministry, help sharpen me. And one of the things I've really come to appreciate about JP is that for his team, he doesn't just care about us professionally, he also cares about us personally. And so he was helping me with some professional issues, but then we pivoted to some personal issues. He said, Scott, you are really good at what you do. You're a great dad, a great husband. You're really good with married couples. But there's an area of your life personally that really confuses me. And can I share it with you? And he's my boss, so I have to say yes. And I said, yeah, what is it? And he says, well, it's your language. He says, you don't cuss every day, you don't cuss every week, but I've worked with you long enough, I shared the Cloffice with you, and I've seen you from time to time, and your words aren't really clean. And I'm like, well, I start justifying, and I don't know how you defend and justify, but I did. I'm like, well, you should have seen me before I was a Christian and then as a new Christian. And then I had the audacity to rattle off the names of a few other people on staff. And I'm like, they're so much worse than me, like throwing them under the bus. And he says, Scott, we're talking about you right now. Talking about your mouth. It says, Ephesians 4:29, let no unwholesome talk come out of your mouths except what is helpful or beneficial for building others up so they may benefit those who listen. And he goes, I just don't see consistency in your life. You say you are a follower of Christ, but then there are areas that aren't fully aligned with what it means to follow him. And so not only did he challenge me, but then he said, let me give you some specific ways that maybe I could help you. And so we had a little bet with one another for a year. And every time I said a bad word, I had to pay him $100. Every time he said a bad word, he would pay me $100. And let's just say for a few months, my kids didn't eat very much, okay? Hemorrhaging out money, if you've ever wondered, like, how is he driving that nice of a car? I'm pretty sure I paid for that car, okay? And it worked, I'm grateful. Like, it's not 100% there, but like so much better than it used to be and continually moving in the right direction. Now, the reason I tell you that story is because there was an area of inconsistency in my life. I claimed one thing, but I lived out another, and I was really fully devoted in most areas, but there was one area that I was holding back and really didn't think it was that big of a deal. And I don't think I'm alone. I think we all have areas of our life maybe where we're inconsistent between what we claim and how we live. For you, it might be the way that you spend your money. Maybe you are generous in the way that you give money to the church, and so therefore you think you can waste it on whatever you want. Maybe it's with your eyes, and you're justifying, you're like, I don't look at hardcore porn, but you look at Game of Thrones and Bridgerton, and you just compromise there. Or maybe it's with your schedule. and you're running all over the country every weekend watching volleyball games of your kids and baseball and soccer and every sport, or you're watching every single show under the sun on Netflix and Apple TV and Hulu, but you don't have time to read your Bible or disciple your kids or pray with your spouse or go to life group. So I think every single one of us is inconsistent in some way in what we claim and how we live it out. Well, God has given us a great text that we get to learn from this morning. We are continuing our series called BC, where we're looking at Old Testament stories. Now, these stories are written BC before Christ, before he was born in a manger, but these stories all point to the larger story of who Jesus is. They all point to the work and person of Jesus Christ. And we're going to continue this series today, looking at the story of Ahab and Elijah in 1 Kings 18. So if you got your Bibles, open up to 1 Kings. We're going to spend some time in there, starting in verse 16. And let me tell you what we're going to see today. The most important thing I want you to walk away with is this idea that if the Lord is God, then follow him. Not half-heartedly, with all of your heart, soul, mind, and strength. If the Lord is God, then follow him. And in that, we need to decide who we're going to follow. We need to realize that a false God will never deliver, and a true God, the true God, will always deliver. Now, 1 Kings, just to give you a little bit of background there, we've got God's people. They're in the land of Israel. They've gone into the promised land. There are 12 tribes that are united under the banner of Israel. But somewhere along the way, because of the sin of the people, the sin of the leaders, God's people get divided up into two kingdoms. There's a northern kingdom called Israel. There's a southern kingdom called Judah. No longer one family working together. It's almost like there are these two tribes that coexist instead of being 12 tribes united. And you need to know that every king that's over Israel was a bad and wicked king. But specifically today, we're going to talk about the worst and most wicked king out of all of the bad kings. The other thing you need to know about the context is that there's a severe drought that's going on in Israel. For 3 years at this point, there's been no rain. That means that the crops are not being watered. That means that the animals have nothing to eat on. There's a severe famine and drought in the land. But much worse than the physical drought is a spiritual drought, where the hearts of the people are pulled away from the Lord. So let's go to 1 Kings chapter 18. We're going to start in verse 16. It says, Ahab went to meet Elijah. When he saw Elijah, he said to him, "Is that you troubler of Israel?" See, Ahab called Elijah a troubler because he blamed Elijah for the drought. Elijah turns around, he says, "I have not made trouble for Israel," Elijah replied, "but you and your father's family have. You have abandoned the Lord's commands and have followed the Baals. Now summon the people from all over Israel to meet me on Mount Carmel, and bring the 450 prophets of Baal and the 400 prophets of Asherah who eat at Jezebel's table." So Ahab sent word throughout all Israel and assembled the prophets on Mount Carmel. Elijah went before the people and said, "How long will you waver between two opinions? If the Lord is God, follow him. But if Baal is God, follow him." But the people said nothing. So let's talk about a few of the characters we meet in this story so far. You've got this guy named Ahab, the most wicked and vile king in all of Israel's history. 1 Kings 16 says that no other king did more to frustrate or anger the Lord. He's married to a real prize of a woman named Jezebel. She is the queen. The two of them collectively do everything they can to pull people away from the one true God to worship the false gods. Next you've got Baal. And it's either pronounced Baal, Baal, all different ways that it's said. But collectively, here's what I want you to think of with Baal. Baal is a false god. And Baal is a category, a collection of false gods that they would pray to. If they wanted good weather, they would pray to the Baal of weather. If they wanted money, they would pray to the Baal of money. If they wanted children, they'd pray to the Baal of fertility. We've also got the people of Israel. So the people of Israel, this is God's people. They're supposed to be walking with the Lord, but instead they're staggering between the two. They worship God one day, they worship Baal the next. They go back and forth. We've got Elijah. Elijah is from Tishbe, and so Elijah the Tishbite. He's a prophet. A prophet is somebody who speaks divinely inspired words for the Lord. And then we've got God himself. And so the one true God, a God that we have talked about weekly in this series and that we talk about every single week here at Harris Creek. And so here's the story. We've got people who are supposed to be worshiping God, but instead they waver between the worship. Sunday, they worship the one true God. Monday, they're worried about money, so they worship the Baal of money. Then they go back to God and make a sacrifice. Then they go over here and they want to have a child, so they worship the Baal of fertility. They go back and forth. And Elijah says, let's get all the people together. Let's send smoke signals out, a tweet, an email, whatever you do to get all the people of Israel to come up on this mountain. And I've been up on this mountain before, Mount Carmel. It's really high up, and all the people assemble there. And he says to them, it's time to decide who you're gonna follow. If the Lord is God, follow him. If Baal is God, follow him. But quit this wavering back and forth. Point number one is that we need to decide who we're going to follow. And the deal is this word waver that's in there in the Hebrew text actually means to limp or to stagger. And so they're not standing firm on anything. They waver and they limp back and forth. Okay, here's what I think this looks like. So it's August 1st. I've got some great news for you. In 27 days, college football starts again. All right, yes. Okay, now the Bears don't play until 34 days from now, but college football starts. I cannot wait. But let's say in this fictitious college football season, our Baylor Bears are playing the Aggies of Texas A&M, okay? Not a real game this year. I knew someone would do it. It happens every time. And so, we're in Waco, and I say we, like I moved here a year ago, but I'm all in. I'm driving the bandwagon, sick and bears. I'm with most of you guys. And so we're gonna go to the opening game. They play each other. It's Baylor against A&M. A&M kicks it off, Baylor gets the ball. Okay, I got my Baylor hat on. And the guy I'm with, we're both wearing Baylor hats and Baylor jerseys. And we get the ball, we march down the field. It's another Baylor first down, and we go down, we score a touchdown. Sick 'em Bears, we're all fired up, right? We're up 7-0. Okay, we kick off, and now A&M gets the ball. And this guy that you're with, my friend that I'm with, he takes off the Baylor hat, takes off the green jersey, puts this disgusting maroon hat on. Okay, he puts on the A&M jersey. He reaches in his pocket. He pulls out a ring that looks a lot like my high school class ring, and he starts like brandishing it and putting it out, and he starts whooping and giggling and all this stuff, and then he's like, hullabaloo, connect, and then farmers fight, and they bring the ball down the field, they get a touchdown, and then he starts making out with the person next to him. I'm like, it's really weird and confusing. But that's what Aggies do. And so I don't understand, but he does it. And then the Aggies kick it off. We get the ball back, take off the maroon and put on the green, and we score, sick and bears. And then the Aggies get it back, and I'm cheering for them. Back and forth, it's confusing. Okay, like, which team are we for? What are we doing? That's what God's people are like here. It's like, I'm gonna worship this team one day, I'm gonna worship this team the next day. It doesn't make sense. Decide who you're going to follow. And we may think, well, we're not like that. Okay, we don't bounce back and forth on teams. We're not like God's people here, but I think we really are. See, we all tend to waver in our faith. We're not as strong and fully devoted as we think we are or want to be. And here's what God's word says when we fence it and when we waver. Galatians 1:10. And am I now trying to win the approval of human beings or of God? Or am I trying to please people? If I were still trying to please people, I would not be a servant of Christ. Which is it? Worship people, worship God. Please people, please God. Revelation 3:15 and 16. I know your deeds, that you are neither cold nor hot. I wish you were either one or the other. So because you are lukewarm, neither hot nor cold, I am about to spit you out of my mouth. Quit being so neutral, stuck in the middle. Be strong. Matthew 6:24. No one can serve two masters. Either you will hate the one and love the other, or you'll be devoted to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve both God and money. we just waver back and forth. And one of our core values here at Harris Creek is that we would be people who are devoted. And that doesn't mean half-heartedly devoted. It's not do love the Lord with half your heart, half your soul, half your might. It's all of it. And so we need to quit wavering. We got to decide who we're going to follow. And when we waver, here's what happens. We miss out on this deep intimacy with Jesus Christ. When we're half-hearted, we miss out on what it means to really be fully devoted, to benefit from walking with him. We're weak in our faith and we waver and we seek the approval of people and we seek the stuff that comes from likes and follows and money. And we're just like politicians. We just kind of waver between what the people want. And we're missing out on a deep intimacy with Christ. It's confusing. People leave the faith over hypocrites. And I'm not pointing the finger. I'm the same way at times. Author Brennan Manning says the greatest single cause of atheism in the world today is Christians who acknowledge Jesus with their lips, walk out the door and deny him by their lifestyle. This is what an unbelieving world finds simply unbelievable. This is the most important decision that we will ever make. Who are we going to follow? Not what school will you go to, not who will you marry, not what job will you take, but who will you follow? And so we need to be people who decide that we're going to follow the Lord and stop wavering between the Lord and the world. Story continues in verse 22. Then Elijah said to them, I am the only one of the Lord's prophets left, but Baal has 450 prophets. Get 2 bulls for us, let Baal's prophets choose one for themselves, and let them cut it into pieces and put it on the wood, but not set fire to it. I will prepare the other bull and put it on the wood, but not set fire to it. Then you call on the name of your God, I will call on the name of the Lord, and the God who answers by fire, he is God. Then all the people said, what you say is good. So I've read this story a bunch of times over the last couple weeks and months, just stuck in it, learning from it, and every time I read it, it kind of reminds me of this. It's a little bit of a boxing match. Okay, maybe you've seen Space Jam, there's 2 teams, there's one side and the other, and they're competing against each other, and I almost picture it like this. The mic drops from the ceiling, the MC grabs the mic, and he says, let's get ready to rumble! On this side, we have, accompanied by his wife Jezebel, 450 prophets of Baal. The God he represents holds a lightning bolt in one hand and a club in the other. He is the most wicked king in the history of evil kings. Let's give it up for Ahab. And the people are going crazy. And in the other corner, smells a little bit funny. Clothes are funny. He has no friends. He's all by himself. He's from Tishbe. Let's give it up for Elijah. You don't picture that as well? That's what I picture every time, right? And so 2 sides, it's not fair. Okay, all the people are over here. This is the winning side, the home side, home field advantage. Everyone's rooting. This is what it would be like, okay? 500-600 in this room, it would be like all of you against me. That's not me saying you're the bad guys and I'm Elijah. I'm the good guy. I'm the one soul, one cheering for the Lord. But it would be an unfair fight. And that's what we've got here. We've got all the numbers, all the home field advantage, everything on this side, and then one person all by himself speaking truth. The story continues. Elijah said to the prophets of Baal, choose one of the bulls and prepare it first, since there are so many of you. I'll let you go first. Call on the name of your God, but do not light the fire. So they took the bull given them and prepared it. Then they called on the name of Baal from morning till noon. Baal, answer us, they shouted. But there was no response. No one answered. And they danced around the altar they had made. And then at noon, this is the best part, Elijah begins to taunt them. Shout louder, he said. Surely he is a God. Perhaps he is deep in thought, or he's busy, or he's traveling. Maybe he's sleeping, and he needs you to awaken him. He must be awakened." So they shouted louder, slashed themselves with swords and spears, as was their custom, until the blood flowed. Midday passed, they continued their frantic prophesying until the time for the evening sacrifice. But there was no response. No one answered. No one paid attention. And so Elijah says to them, "Let's each take a bull. You go first. You cut yours up. You put it on the altar." They cut it up. They're dancing around it. There's 450 of them dancing around like a bunch of maniacs and make screaming on the ground. They're up, down, worshiping, screaming. Elijah on the other side. "Hey, where's your God?" The ESV translation actually says, maybe he's in the bathroom. Okay, potty humor. Maybe he's in the bathroom, he's dropping a deuce, the fan is on, I don't know what's going on. Okay, he's watching the Olympics, he's cheering really hard for Team Israel or whatever team he's cheering for, I don't know. And maybe he's watching Ted Lasso, he's really consumed, he can't hear you. Maybe he's sleeping or he's traveling, wake up. And so they start going louder and crazier, and they're not just dancing. Now they grab swords and start cutting themselves, and there's blood going everywhere. This is like every teenage boy's favorite story, potty humor and blood and drama. It's amazing. And blood going everywhere, and nothing happens. No one answered. The fire remains unlit. Point number 2, a false God never delivers. A false God never delivers. And you may be thinking, we are not like the prophets of Baal. We don't dance around, we don't slash ourselves, we don't cut. We're different than they are. Or are we? Just like I think we're a little bit like the people of Israel, I think we're like the prophets of Baal. Now, our worship may not be the same worship that they have, but we have things we worship. Talked about that Baylor game in the beginning. You worship Baylor. Okay, depending on what happens in that game, if the Bears win, it's the best day ever. If they lose, things are horrible. You're grumpy, you get frustrated, you say bad words. Okay, maybe it's this. You worship likes and followers and shares. And so you share something on Instagram and you come back a minute later, how many people liked it? How many people commented? Did it get shared to somebody's story? If it does, great, I'm worth something. If it doesn't, then I'm miserable. I worship the God of attention. Maybe it's your grades. Maybe you find your value in athletic ability, the car you drive, the home you own, the shoes you wear, the pants you wear. You find value in anything. We worship these false gods, and they are never, ever going to deliver. Christopher Wright says in the book, "Here Are Your Gods." The worship of Baal is alive and well in Western culture, with our idolizing of sex and money. As the Canaanites and Israel after them worshiped fertility in its broadest sense, so we worship its modern equivalents. And what I've seen in my life, what I've seen in countless other lives, is that the false God will never, ever come through. No high is good enough, no binge is good enough. It's never going to satisfy. You're always going to come back for more. And the reason Baal doesn't answer is because he's a false God who cannot see, cannot hear, cannot walk, cannot feel. He cannot do anything. See, I know what it's like to worship a false God. I would largely tell you the reason why I am no longer in Dallas, Texas, and why I'm in Waco is because I burned out at my prior job. Thought I would die in Dallas. I thought they'd have to roll my bones out of our home in Richardson or church at Watermark. I loved working there, but I burned out. And the God that I worshiped was the false God of my reputation. Cared so much about what other people thought of me. And so every opportunity I got, I took. Every chance to teach, every chance to write, every chance to expand my influence in my job. And I said yes, and I said yes, and I said yes. And maybe if I get enough approval, maybe if I do enough stuff, maybe if I get enough likes, follows, enough money, then maybe it'll be worth it. And some of that stuff came. I got a book deal, I got a bigger job, I had a team I led, and I was empty. There could never be enough. And along the way, I burned myself out. I stayed up till 1 a.m. working. I'd get up at 5 a.m. I neglected my health. I was out of weight, blood pressure high, every issue you could think of. I neglected my kids. See, maybe I didn't miss many of their games, but most of the games I was at, I was consumed by work. I'm checking email and texting and working all the time, and I'd stay up so late and get up so early, and it was never enough. And I burned out, and I got tired. And unfortunately, I went through a period of rest and healing, and I am so glad to be here. So glad to be in this place. And I'm still not over it, but I'm working and moving in the right direction. I'm incredibly grateful. But I worship my reputation. And we all have false gods that we worship, and they will never, ever, ever deliver. Verse 30 through 35, I'm going to summarize this portion of the text. So Elijah says to the people, you've been watching Ahab and the prophets of Baal try to do their thing. It hasn't worked. I want you to come over here now. He calls them over. He repairs the altar, puts the wood out. Listen to this. He gets 12 stones. 1 stone for each of the 12 tribes of Israel. I think it's a little bit of a reminder when he puts the stone down and he puts the stone for Benjamin and he looks and sees someone from the tribe of Benjamin, and he puts the stone for Dan down. He sees somebody from the tribe of Dan and somebody from the tribe of Judah, and he's reminding them, you remember when we used to be the same? Remember when we were all the same, God's people working together? We weren't divided and we worshiped the one true God, but now we're split into 2 kingdoms and we're worshiping false gods. Do you remember? So he reminds them to worship the Lord. He puts 12 stones down. He cuts the bull. He puts the bull on the altar. And then he does something crazy. He says, let me get 4 guys. I want you to take 4 large barrels. I want you to go all the way down this big mountain. Go find 4 barrels of water. So they grab 4 barrels of water. They bring it up. And then he tells them to dump it on the altar. So they pour it all over the altar. There's a little trench he built around the outside of it. He says, go down and do it again. They go down the mountain, get 4 more barrels, bring it up. Can I remind you, they're in the middle of a 3-year severe famine. They find water, they do it a 3rd time. There's 12 large barrels of water on top of this altar. The wood is soaked, the animal is soaked, the trench around it is full. I'm not a big camping guy, but I think it's probably pretty hard to light a soaking wet fire. Okay, like why don't you go swim underneath water and see if you can set something on fire there. That's what he's doing. He is stacking the deck against himself. And it's kind of crazy, right? He's gonna get killed. All right, there's 450 crazy people here. We know they have knives and swords. And he's all there by himself. He's wasting water. He's wasting their time. But he douses his altar with water. Verse 36, at the time of sacrifice, the prophet Elijah stepped forward and prayed, Lord, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Israel. Let it be known today that you are God in Israel, and that I am your servant and have done all these things at your command. Answer me, Lord, answer me. So these people will know that you, Lord, are God, and that you are turning their hearts back again. Then the fire of the Lord fell and burned up the sacrifice, the wood, the stones, the soil, and also licked up the water in the trench. When all the people saw this, they fell prostrate and cried, the Lord, he is God. The Lord, he is God. Do you know what Elijah means? It means the Lord, he is God. That's what his name means. And Elijah did not dance around the fire. He didn't cut himself. He didn't slash. He didn't scream. He simply did the humble thing. He falls down on his face and he prays. Says, God, this is not for me. This is not about me. This is about your fame, your renown. Would you please turn your people's hearts back again? The fire falls, sets the thing on fire. Everything is burned up. And the visual, think of it, of this fire burned up completely. This one still has the bull on it. Nothing has happened. The true Lord has done the work here. Point number 3, the true God always delivers. And what we see over and over and over and over and over in the scriptures is that God consistently stacks the deck against himself. Think of the odds in this one. They've got home turf. Mount Carmel is probably the home of Baal. They've got the numbers. Their altar is dry. This guy's all by himself. He's got a soaking wet altar. It's not his home turf. And God sets the one on fire. The true God always delivers. You remember the story of Moses? God's people leave Egypt. They've got the most powerful person in the universe chasing after them with thousands of troops and chariots. And here are God's people, slaves with no money, with nothing. All they have is what they got from the Egyptians, and they come up against this Red Sea. The deck is stacked against God, but he splits the sea, he delivers his people. God puts Daniel in a den with a bunch of lions. God closes the mouth of the lions and spares Daniel. The Midianites are attacking God's people. Gideon takes 300 men and defeats thousands of Midianites. The true God always delivers, and it does not matter how badly the deck is stacked against him. I know this story personally because the deck was significantly stacked against me. I grew up in the Northeast, and I don't know if any of you are from the Northeast, but people don't talk about their faith in the Northeast. Okay, I grew up in a home with a mom who I love. My dad died at a young age. One brother, not a Christian family. He found pornography at the age of 7. Became full-on addicted and lived out everything I saw over the next couple of years, and started drinking, started doing drugs, got a potty mouth, you already heard that. I'm a glutton. I worship my reputation. God can't save me. It's like he doused water all over me. There is no hope. At the age of 22, I'm in North Carolina. I meet this guy named Will Hall. Will shares the gospel with me. It's the first time I think I've ever heard the gospel in my life. And I wasn't interested in what he shared, but I was intrigued by his life and the way he lived. I moved to Atlanta to go to grad school for physical therapy. Will moved to Atlanta. We started meeting on a weekly basis. He discipled me. He taught me God's word. We memorized scripture. I went to church, I was in a small group, started praying, stopped doing all the bad stuff, started doing all the good, and I thought, okay, God, I'm a Christian now because I'm doing all the good and I've stopped all the bad. And for years, for week after week after week, I thought I was a Christian because I jumped around and I slashed and I danced and I called God's name and I did everything that you're supposed to do to get his attention. It wasn't until February 13th, 1998, when I finally surrendered my life to Jesus. I realized that there is nothing that I could do to earn his affection. It is by God's grace alone that I am saved. And the same God who lit the fire, who can save me, is the same God who saves every one of us. The deck is stacked against every one of us because of sin. But here's what we know to be true is Romans 5:8, but God demonstrates his own love for us in this, in that while you and I were still sinners, Christ died for us. And we also see the deck stacked against the Son of God, Jesus. Born in a manger, born out of wedlock, a carpenter. Fails to meet everyone's expectations. Isaiah says that he was very humble in appearance. He's not somebody that people would look at to want to follow. He teaches all these amazing things, but the deck is stacked against him. He goes to a cross and he dies. They put him in the grave. The deck is stacked against Jesus, but God raises him from the dead in the most amazing act in the history of history. And all we need to do is to believe in what God has done through his son, Jesus. The same God who raised Jesus from the dead is the same God who lit the fire, is the same God who took hold of my heart in February of 1998, is the same God who sent his son for you and for me. And here's what I know to be true about this story. On the surface, this story looks like it is a battle between a lot of people and one person. It looks like it's a battle between Baal and 450 prophets and this powerful king and his wicked wife, and then one person all by himself. But the truth is that this is not a battle between many men and one man, between thousands of people and one. This is a battle between a false God and the one true God. See, it really doesn't matter how many prophets there are on this side. It doesn't matter how many are against you, whether it's 4 or 4,000 or 4 million or 4 billion. If God is on this side, then we have everything we need. The true God always delivers. And so if the Lord is God, then let's be people who follow him. We need to decide who we're going to follow. We need to realize that the false God will never, ever, ever come through, and that the one true God always delivers. At the beginning of the message, I shared about a part of my life where I was not following God. I was half-heartedly following him. I want to give you an opportunity to apply this to your own life as well. And so in every chair, there should have been an index card, a blank index card when you walked in. I know a lot of you don't have pens, but if you do, I want you to grab a pen. I want you to write something on top of the card. I want you to write this phrase that's in 1 Kings 16 or 18:21, and the same phrase you've heard me say repeatedly. If the Lord is God, then follow him. And if you don't have a pen, borrow one from a neighbor. You can type it in your phone, but I want you to take this home with you, and I'm going to tell you what I want you to do with it. If the Lord is God, then follow him. And I want you to write underneath it, I want you to write, what's the area of your life where you are not following God wholeheartedly? Maybe it's your words, maybe it's your money, maybe it's your eyes. If you don't think you have one, I'll give you the answer. Pride. You're prideful, maybe. Okay, what is it in your life? If the Lord is God, then follow him. This could change every single day for me. It could be my eyes and my thoughts. It could be money. It could be what I eat. Today, I've got 4 sons who I love dearly. I'm really proud to be their dad. They're 12 and 14 and 17 and 17. And the area where I am having trouble trusting God is with their future and with their success. And I just want to control it and give counsel and tell them what to do and what not to do. And I just want God to be God in their lives. I don't want to be their God. And so for me, it's the success and future of my kids. I don't know what it is for you. Here's what I want you to do with this card. This is not for you to keep on your own. This is for you to share with someone else. That doesn't mean go give it to a stranger. That means when you are with your life group, I want you to share the answer to this question. And I don't want you just to sit here on Sunday and go, that was a helpful message, and forget it. Yeah, this is an easy way for you to grow in community, to grow in your struggles. And so share it with your life group, share with your spouse, with your roommates. If the Lord is God, I want to follow him, and here is where I need your help. And you do that for each other. Let's be people who don't half-heartedly follow God. Let's follow him completely. God, thank you that you chose to keep this text so that we could learn from it thousands and thousands of years later. God, I pray that we would be people who, if we profess that you are the Lord, that we're gonna follow you. And I pray that we would stop chasing after the false gods, stop worshiping the things of this world. Instead, God, I pray that you would help us to see, to remember, to realize that you always deliver. It doesn't matter how badly the odds are stacked against us, that you are the one true God. And God, we just confess and we pray and we dependently come to you and say, we can't do this on our own. Apart from you, we could do nothing. So will you please help us to wholeheartedly follow you? God, we know that you are Lord, and so let us follow you. If any in this room don't know you, God, I pray that they would, maybe for the first time, hear the truth of the gospel, know about a God who loves them so much that you sent your son for us. We love you. Thank you for the truths that are within this passage. In your name we pray. We know that you are God, and so help us to follow you. In your name we pray. Amen.